Good morning and welcome to another training session on ESA Module 5 that deals with the protection of information assets. I take this opportunity to thank you all for appreciating and encouraging my efforts in making these video lectures. I'm so happy to know that most of you are liking the video and you're finding it very informative. The purpose of making this video is exactly the same, that being a professional who runs short of time and wanted to clear the ESA exams must have an access to a very precise and informative material that has significance for clearing the exam. Since this video is going to be a long, because the module 5th and module 6th are slightly more technical and they require more of explanation. So I'll be taking more time. So it's very likely that I may divide the video into several portions, right? So starting this module 5th, there was tremendous amount of request from all of you requesting that I should upload the video on the protection of information assets, ESA 3, which deals with the module 5th. So in this module, we'll be talking, basically this module, if you look at the study material given by the Institute of Chartered Accountants of India, it consists of 5 chapters. And having a nag of what these 5 chapters are, it is essential that you must read the material carefully. So like say, for instance, chapter 1 deals with the protection of information assets. Chapter 2 deals with administrative controls for information assets. Chapter 3 deals with the physical and environmental controls. Chapter 4 with logical access controls, and 5th with the network security controls. If you look into what the word that is commonly running across all the chapters is basically they're talking about controls. Now, when you're talking about the controls, we are talking about the precautionary measures that are being incorporated at the physical level, at the digital level, at the information level, at the system level, so that the digital assets, precisely what you call it as an information assets, can be safeguarded and protected from unauthorized access and control. So if you look at the important concepts that we're going to talk about in general, so I'll be reviewing some of the most important concepts, and now these concepts are not my imagination. These concepts are being considered for for review, because I've gone through the exam papers and experts' comments and all different type of sources. I've used it to come to a common platform, so where I can understand that what are the areas that require a special review for the examination point of view, because these modules are very exhaustive, right? So we need to be specifically touching upon the areas from where the most of the questions are being framed. So first one is Wi-Fi security, that is wireless security. Second is the firewall types and implementation. I am sure you must have heard this word firewall, but we'll be talking about it in detail. Then we have logical access control. Then I'll be talking about classification of information assets, digital signature. That's very important, and I'm sure all of us must be using it when we are signing the reports. Biometrics, intrusion detection system (IDS) and intrusion preventive system (IPS), single sign-on, and fire suppression system. And these are basically the types of security measures which are used for protection of information assets, right? So we'll start with this wireless or Wi-Fi security. That's the first concept I'm going to talk. Now, I have been repeatedly telling that I have used different colors when I'm using this text. As you are reading the text, you will find that some text is in the red color and the other is in blue, and sometimes I'm using the blue also. They reflect that these are the these are the words, or these are the phrases they do have appeared in the examination questions, right? For example, the best practice for a wireless security. Now, so I would like to add one more thing. If you look into the past examination paper of ESA, you'll have to make a choice of the most likely, the correct answer, which means that all the options or the answers which are given in the MCQs are almost likely the correct. But we have to select the most likely. That means which is the best out of the rest. And for that, you need to understand that which is more important. So I have highlighted that in terms of the best practices, which you can do if you're talking about Wi-Fi security is first is enable media access control address filtering. That is, every machine which you have, or every instrument or every device which you put on a network has a definite media access control. That's called a MAC address, right? So you can restrict by defining or by specifying that which address is to be accessed and which is not to be accessed, right? So the best practices for Wi-Fi is you can add on certain machine addresses, MAC addresses, or media access controls, or you can delete or you can restrict certain network servers or machines MAC addresses. That's called as address filtering. Enable encryption to protect data in transit. Now, again, encryption means it was used when the time of military information is being shared across border or something like that. So you talk about encryption is basically you're talking about using a coded language, right? So when you are sending data across the network, which is an open or public network, then in that case it is essential that the information which is traveling or the data packets which are traveling across the network, they need to be encrypted in some form or the other so that the data integrity, confidentiality, and privacy is maintained. So there are two types of encryption which are used when we are talking about the Wi-Fi security. First is Wi-Fi protected access, that is WPA, and wired equivalent privacy, that is WEP. Now, out of these two, the Wi-Fi protected access, also known as WPA2, is the strongest encryption standard for the wireless connection as on today. So if the question is being asked that if you have to enable the encryption for protecting the data in a transit, you may get many options with them. But I'm saying that which is the strongest, that is the most likely, the best out of the rest, it is the WPA2, which is the strongest encryption standard for the wireless connections. Now, these encryption techniques protect data in transit and not on a device. That means when you are talking about these protocols, or when you're talking about the Wi-Fi security, we are mainly concerned with the protection of a data that is traveling from one node to the another node. And we are not concerned with the protection of the individual devices which are being placed onto the network. Please remember that. Second is disable SSID, that is Service Set Identifier Broadcasting. Now, SSID is a unique identifier attached to the header. It acts as a password. Now, these are technical things. I mean, even if I try to explain, unless and until you have experienced it when you're working, or you have experienced, you have been administering a network, you'll find it difficult to understand. So SSID, if you are talking about service set identifier, because if you disable it, then in that case, it is difficult to identify where the traffic and who is on the traffic. So it is just like, it's like you're protecting it using a password. Unless and until you have the password, you cannot access the people or the traffic which is available on the network. Disable, that is Dynamic Host Configuration Protocol. Now, DHCP is, again, you must have seen that when you're connecting your computers to the network. So it is just like every time I connect onto a network, so network administrator assigns me a protocol or a IP address to me for that very particular session. Once I log on to the session, that is again released, and again when I join, a new IP address is assigned. Now, DHCP is basically a client server protocol that automatically provides an internet protocol that is called as IP. As I mentioned about it, that whenever I'm trying to connect on an internet, because it is not possible that each individual on the internet get a fixed IP or the network. Because if I'm, for example, if I'm a bank and I'm an employee, or let's say, for instance, I'm in an academic, in any institution or organization. Now, there has to be a network, local area network. Within that network, there are several clients. There has to be a network server. So when I connect with the server, when I log on onto the net, then what happens is that the server assigns me a temporary internet protocol, which is known as IP address, for that very particular session, for me to get connected to the outer world using internet. Once I log out, that means again that IP address is released and it can be given to somebody else. This is why the word dynamic host configuration protocol. That means the host randomly dynamically assigns the IP address to the clients who are connecting on the network. Now we'll talk about the wireless network attack methods and techniques. Now, the most important concern is that you find that these wirelesses are prone to attack, or we call it as a network attack, hackers. Attack means getting an unauthorized access to the network protocols and getting into the network for seeking information access, right? So one such word which is being asked in the examination repeatedly is war driving. Now, instead of thinking that what war driving should be, remember that what means war driving means, that means you are driving in a war zone. Similarly, you can say that unauthorized access to a wireless infrastructure by driving or walking in and around the building. Say, for instance, there is a security press there, and I wanted to access the infrastructure, wireless infrastructure. So one way is I enter to the building, or the other way is that I keep on driving in a vehicle, or I can walk around the building for accessing the network. I try to access that network. Now, war driving is also used by auditor to test integrity of the wireless infrastructure. Now, this is very important technique which chartered accountants use, or maybe the auditors of those who are information system auditors. We're going to use it for checking the integrity of the wireless infrastructure. That is, sometimes it so happens that an auditor has to check that how easy it is for any outsider or intruder to get into the wireless, access the wireless infrastructure. Similarly, another word is war walking. Now, same as war driving, but instead of driving, it is walking with the device. Hey, you're having a device in your hand and you're walking around the building to have an access to it. The next is war chalking. Drawing a symbol in public places to advertise an open Wi-Fi network, these symbols can be used by others for exploiting weak wireless network. Now, it's very simple. Railway stations and all that, they do say that there are wireless, for they give you an open Wi-Fi, you can access it. But if you mark it categorically with a symbol saying that these networks are available, so then in a way you are declaring that their network is available for an attack, right? The next is confidentiality of the data transmitted in a wireless LAN is best protected by encrypting data using dynamic key as compared to the static key. Now, the one is, this is again a type of a statement which you should understand, because this is an answer to one of the questions which was asked. Now, confidentiality of the data in the sense that when the data is traveling on the network, nobody has read that data. That's as simple as it is. Integrity means nobody has changed the data. So I'm talking about confidentiality. If you want to ensure that whatever data you have put onto the network and nobody has seen that data or access to that data, then please try to use encryption. Encryption is done by using set of keys. So instead of using static keys, you can start using the dynamic keys. As again, remember, dynamic host configuration protocol. Now these keys are not defined or static. Static in the sense they're predetermined, but dynamic means it is assigned dynamically, randomly. So breaking or getting access to these dynamic keys is slightly more difficult as compared to the static keys. Now we'll talk about the review of important concept as firewall types and implementation. Now this is going to be a bigger one, so I'll like to stop the video here, and I'll again start another session, so that now the users can, you all can have a small modules, which is easy for you to comprehend and understand. So see you soon. Thank you.